Welcome to Strictly Business, a program that goes into the heart of businesses to find out what it is that makes them succeed and indeed what it is that makes them fail. Because very often success is inextricably bound with failure. And I have a very special guest today. She is Megan Dean. Ms. Dean, welcome to Strictly Business.
Thank you so much.
And today, of course, we're going to be talking about credit bureaus and the Credit Reporting Act, which was promulgated in 2010. So why did it take so long for you to get a license? Tell us about that process.
Well, Credit Info Jamaica applied for the license in March of 2011, shortly after the act was promulgated. And one thing I have to say is that the evaluation process by the Bank of Jamaica was extremely rigorous, and it took 1 year before the recommendation went to the Minister of Finance that we be awarded a license. But I can say that we benefited tremendously from the rigor of that analysis. They went through everything that needed to be checked, the integrity of the system, the bona fides of our partners in Iceland, all the due diligence on both the shareholders and the major managers in the business. It was all rigorous, and I can say that at the end of the day, we are extremely proud to have been awarded the first license.
Okay, you mentioned Iceland. So Credit Info is a joint venture between your company and a group in Iceland. Tell us about the composition of the business, your partners. Give us some background again about your partner.
Credit Info Jamaica is a joint venture between Coalesce Credit Solutions, which is a Jamaican company with Jamaican shareholders, and Credit Info Group, which is a company based in Iceland, which is a specialist in credit reporting and also the establishment of credit bureaus. Coalesce Credit Solutions, when the legislation was passed, saw this as an opportunity, but not having the technical capabilities itself. It looked around the world and did its due diligence and came up with Credit Info Group as one of the major players in this arena in Europe. They are the majority shareholder in Credit Info Jamaica, but Coalesce Credit Solutions has a substantial equity stake to the tune of 40%.
Okay, 40. So it's a 60-40.
It's a 60-40 relationship, yes.
Okay, because they have the technical
They
know-how
are the specialists, and nobody here in Jamaica really has that capability.
Yeah.
So it had to be imported.
Now, typically, for the benefit of the average Jamaican, I'd like you to tell us typically what sort of information you would be collecting.
Well, what the legislation allows us to do is collect information from providers of credit.
All
Banks,
providers of credit.
All providers of credit. Banks, credit unions, hire purchase companies, the National Housing Trust is specifically named, the Students' Loan Bureau is specifically named, microfinance organizations. Any institution really that provides credit, even if it's not their major business, is capable under the legislation of providing information to a credit bureau. And what happens with the passage of this legislation is that we are now the only type of institution, the licensees, that may collect credit information. Any institution before that was able to do that or had credit bureau in their name is no longer capable of doing that. So that information is collected by the credit bureau. Our technology allows us to be able to package that information, synthesize it with the information gathered from all the data sources, and be able to provide a single credit report on the history of that individual who is being reviewed. So if it's Owen James or Megan Dean, you'd be able to have a comprehensive look at the credit history that we have been managing over the years.
You know, Megan, before this interview started, in our little chit chat, we're talking about, well, in my layman's way, I suggested to you that good credit is a form of collateral. Is this so?
It is supposed to become so once the history is there, to be able to allow the institutions to rely on the integrity of the information that is being provided. Because persons who have a good credit history, a good credit score, eventually will be able to provide a score on each individual or company, would be able to take that to the bank, literally, and be able to negotiate not only better interest rates, because there is a risk relationship with interest rates. You price higher the more risk there is perceived. So if you can show that you're a better risk, a lower risk, you're supposed to be able to negotiate a better interest rate, less collateral, lower collateral requirements. It's supposed to really be able to allow you to negotiate from a position of strength.
So a person who doesn't renege on his debts and who pays on time has the opportunity really to get the prime lending rates from the commercial banks and other lending institutions.
Absolutely. That is supposed to be the intent of it.
Now, I want you to quickly clarify a point for me. You mentioned you collect information from agencies which lend money, typically lend money. These are licensed institutions, eh?
They're both licensed.
What about the unlicensed
as well as
ones?
unlicensed.
Okay.
What the legislation allows us to do is collect information from the providers of credit. We may not, however, release that information without the specific permission of the person or company which is the subject of that report.
Yeah. How secure is that sensitive information that you've spent time to research and package? Can your overseas partner use it, for example, in areas not defined by the laws of Jamaica?
Well, that's one good thing I have to say about the legislation. Actually, our partners informed us that of the 11 countries in which they operate, Jamaica is the only one with the kind of legislative framework that we have. And they have never experienced such a rigorous application and assessment process. Incorporated in the evaluation process for the Bank of Jamaica was an assessment of the technical capabilities of the credit bureau system. Okay, so we have to be sure that the appropriate firewalls are incorporated in technology. The data has to be encrypted. The capabilities of transmission over secure networks was evaluated. The whole process flow, they required an outline of the physical security system that will be employed, cameras, the tracking of who accesses a report from which computer. And one of the things that the viewers need to understand, that nobody can just willy-nilly, even I as the CEO of the company cannot just go in and check somebody's credit report. Even just, I mean, you can test it with Bank of Jamaica for the system, because we're going to have to test certain information. But once it's authorized to go live in about 6 months or so, nobody can just go checking people's reports, because every time you check somebody's report, not only does it leave a footprint of the check, but it also affects the person's credit report. So even within the institutions that will now want to be able to re-access data, they have to go through an entire educational process to understand what happens when a report is checked, because every time you check a report, it's assumed that you may be looking for credit. The more you're looking for credit, the less robust is your score. So all of these issues are going to have to come to the fore in an educational process.
Okay, you're watching Strictly Business. Rather interesting topic, the credit bureaus and the operations of credit bureaus in Jamaica. And of course, my guest is Megan Dean, the CEO of Credit Info Jamaica. When we come back, we'll have more on that topic. Now remember, when we talk on this program, it's Strictly Business. Welcome back to Strictly Business as we continue to look at credit bureaus, and in particular Credit Info Jamaica Limited, headed by Megan Dean. Welcome back, Megan.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
And today I want just to continue looking at that security aspect. Can an individual know whether there's sort of unauthorized peeking at his credit information?
Well, one of the things that absolutely has to happen before anyone can access someone's credit report is that written permission has to be given to the credit bureau.
And
Particularly,
that written permission has to come from whom?
it has to come from the subject of the credit report. So if an institution wants to extend credit to Owen James and ask you for a report, you actually have to give them permission, which they have to show to the credit bureau before we will release that information to them. There are penalties under the legislation, both financial as well as custodian. I could go to jail, so you know that we are going to be absolutely making sure that we get that requisite permission.
That's heartening to know, viewers. You will have to give the authorization for the credit bureau to check your
release
your sensitive information. Very important point there. Now you got the go-ahead early March to formally start the business. When do you hope to be up and running formally?
Well, the approval from the minister gives us 12 months, which means that we have to be operational by the 6th of March 2013, otherwise we would lose the approval. But because of the significant work that was done during the year of application with the Bank of Jamaica's oversight, we anticipate that we will be able to cut that in half, and we are expecting to be able to do that in 6 months. So we're anticipating, all of the things being equal, that we will be up and running no later than, say, September, October. We are now in the build-out process. We have just recently signed a 3-year lease for the space that we will need to occupy, because we need to have a secure room to put the servers and the equipment. We're in the process of engaging with the data providers to be able to get that information. That information now has to be tested, coded, put on the system. We have to set up our whole security protocols, and then before we can actually go live, the Bank of Jamaica, the Financial Supervisory Division, Institution Supervisory, has to come back in once we have actually set up, and they have to actually test the system, look at the checks and balances, and then we would get the approval to go live. And that's what we're hoping to do in, as I say, 6 months.
No, the commercial banks and certainly the other formal lending institutions have their own checks that they do. How will yours differ from the checks that now exist at the commercial banks and the credit unions and the building societies and so on?
Well, there is not going to be any getting away from the requirement to know your customer. That is the banks and the credit unions, all institutions that treat with credit and customers accessing credit. They have to know their customers. But this will be able to shorten that process, because they will be able to now access comprehensive information from an independent source. So it will be able to make that process much more rapid in terms of the assessment. They're still going to have to do their own due diligence in the evaluation of the actual report, but anything that comes up on it, they have it now in one place. They can treat with their customer, ask for explanations. And one of the things that I think the listeners need to understand is that even if your credit history is not what you would wish it to be because of the particular circumstance, you have the opportunity to explain it to that credit provider. They have the capability to now better price that risk, and then you also have the opportunity to improve on how you've been able to manage your situations in the past and be able to do better. Because one of the things that I should point out is that we can only keep 7 years of history. So as you do better earning with your job, better situations, and you're able to better manage your credit, even if it was not what you would have wished it to be in the past, you have the opportunity to get better in the future.
Okay, great news there. Now, I wanted to walk us through the process under the credit reporting regime, the credit bureau regime. Typically, I go to a bank, I need to borrow some money to buy a home or a new car. Walk us through the process. If we were to plot that on a chart, tell us what happens.
Okay.
You go to the bank. Yeah?
We're going to assume that we have signed data providers agreements with various institutions, banks, credit unions, wherever. It is able to say how you've treated with your obligations in the past. You will get a representation of how many days you were late, whether you've always paid on time, and there would be a credit score attached to that. We're going to be using the scale that is used in the United States, which is 350 to 800, because most Jamaicans understand what it means when you have a score over 600. You're a good credit risk, which is not to say that if you are below, you won't get the credit, but you would probably pay higher and you'd probably have to give more security. When you go to that institution and they say they want a permission to access your credit report, you give them written permission, they send it to us. We are working with the institutions that they will be able to have a seamless process. So they would actually be able to either go on their computers and log into our secure access point, or if their system capabilities are such, it would be in their system integrated, and their officers would now just log in and be able to, with your permission, pull that report. When they see that report on you with a score, they're able to use that information to now negotiate with you both the pricing, the interest rates you will get, as well as the collateral that you will provide. And they will do that in tandem with all the other information that they would provide on you, because we don't collect personal information per se.
Okay, Megan, as we come to the end of this segment, I wanted to summarize, so maybe in about 60 seconds, how beneficial are credit bureaus to the average Jamaican, and indeed the marketplace on a whole.
Well, let me treat with the marketplace first. Having credit bureaus within the financial framework of the country actually moves us a couple notches up on the doing business index internationally. It is something that is recognized as being beneficial to a marketplace, because one of the things that's important in marketplaces is information. Knowledge is power, and so the institutions will be able to use that information to their benefit. As I say, it's game changing. It's going to make for quicker decisions, better price decisions, and really be able to almost contribute to the automation of the credit decision-making process. From the individual's point of view, it also is going to be beneficial, because those persons who handle their responsibilities well are going to be able to use that to their benefit. They're going to be able to negotiate better pricing again, less collateral for themselves, and it also is going to engender a sense of responsibility and discipline, which maybe we didn't have before, but now that we know that we will not be able to go from institution to institution and not treat well with our institutions, with our obligations, it's going to be able to have a better managed financial sector framework. So it's a win-win for everybody, I think.
You know, Megan, I've been generous with the time. You know, that's over 60 seconds, but the information was worth it.
And it's very difficult to shorten something that is so game-changing.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now, my guest, of course, is Megan Dean, the CEO of Credit Info Jamaica. Now, when we come back with feature story, we look at the competition that is building up in the credit bureau's arena. Stay with us. This is Strictly Business. Remember, when we talk, no frills, no thrills. It's strictly business. Welcome back to Strictly Business and the feature story segment of our program. Now, viewers ought to know that Credit Info Jamaica Limited will not be the only credit bureau in the island. There'll be other credit bureaus. Now, Megan, I'm going to ask you this question, as I ask many businesses which operate within the same sector, the banks and so on. With this competition, how will Credit Info Jamaica Limited distinguish itself? What it is that you are offering to the public, to your clients, as that distinguishing feature of your business?
Well, reliability of information and the integrity of our system will be our defining hallmarks. Credit Info Group, which is our parent company, has distinguished bona fides in Europe, and this is their first foray into this part of the world. But I can tell you that in competitive bidding with establishing credit bureaus internationally, in Tanzania, they have been selected by the central bank there. They have a major institution in Germany, and they're in a lot of the Eastern European countries, and they have won their competitive proposals against the other major credit providers of information internationally. They are preferred institution for the World Bank, for the IMF, and so we know that we're going to be able to rely on their technical capabilities for our support. The legislation does not allow information to be kept outside of Jamaica, so there need to be no doubt that the information is safe, it is secure, and I can tell you that part of the process of evaluation by Bank of Jamaica was not just evaluation of the technical capabilities of the company, it was also of the individuals, the shareholders of the company. We all had to be subject to evaluation by the international investigative agencies, FBI, Interpol, the Canadian Royal Mounted Police. As long as you had any exposure internationally for longer than 6 months, you were done. A comprehensive check was done on you, because clearly you can't have an institution that is putting itself out there to be providing information of integrity and the individuals behind it are not subject to scrutiny. So all of that was done, and we are not at all afraid of the competition. We know that we have a quality product. We know that we have the entire 450 members of staff in the Credit Info Group behind this institution here, and we also know that the knowledge transfer that will be made from international arena to Jamaica, we can't put a price on that. So we expect that there will be competition. Another license was granted. We don't know if there will be others. We suspect that maybe with the size of the market, maybe just the two of us will be there. But competition is a good thing, because we'll be able to evaluate how the scores converge. And if you look at the United States market, they have three major institutions there that coexist very well. And in fact, all of the institutions use all of the credit scores because they want to see the checks and the balances.
Now, how do you propose to promote a culture of credit scoring in Jamaica among the average Jamaican? How do you hope to do that? What sort of educational thrust, if any, do you plan to do that? Because it's new, it's game changing.
It's new, absolutely. One of the requirements actually that attaches to the provision of the license is a comprehensive public education program. So even to appear on your program is part of that educational process that we're going to be undertaking. We have to actually present to the Bank of Jamaica and have approved the educational program that is going to be attached to the existence of the Credit Bureau. So we will be out there on public media speaking. We will be in schools, because it's going to start from there, the sense of responsibility to be engendered. We will obviously have an advertising program. We are on social media. Persons can go on and ask questions. We have a very good website, creditinfojamaica.com, that persons can go to get information. And it will be continuing and ongoing because, as I say, persons need to be educated as to their responsibility in this whole process.
This new culture.
This new culture. It's a culture.
And they'll be able to access their credit scores?
That's another thing that the legislation made provision for. Every year, each individual or company is entitled to one free credit report. And again, I mean, it's something that persons are pretty familiar with because their exposure to cable. So you're able to get one free credit report per year. There's also a comprehensive complaints process. So if an individual accesses their credit report and they see something in there that they have a difficulty with, they're able to challenge the integrity of that report by having a written process to us. We are required under law to pull that report. We have to advise any institution that access that report that it is under challenge. They have 14 days to bring us substantiating information that verifies the challenge that they have made, and if it is in fact correct, then we're required to change the report, re-advise every institution that accessed the incorrect report, reissue the correct report. So there's a whole protocol that protects the consumer, both individual and company.
Fascinating stuff, Megan.
You have to have us back because we've just touched the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, well, we most certainly will look at that possibility. Exciting stuff there, viewers. A game-changing move, as Megan Dean has just said. That's Strictly Business for today, folks. And of course, my guest was Megan Dean, the CEO of Credit Info Jamaica Limited. And our discussion focused around a game-changing move. Credit bureaus in Jamaica. It's going to be truly game-changing for every Jamaican. I'm Owen James. To give feedback on this program, do email us at allmedia6@cwjamaica.com.
Owen James's Strictly Business was brought to you by Sagicor, Wise Financial Thinking for Life, and Jampro, working for Jamaica, working for you. Jamaica's investment promotions agency, Jampro, means business. Jampro's mission is to promote brand Jamaica, attract and facilitate wealth-creating investments to Jamaica, and secure lucrative markets for quality brand Jamaica products. Jampro, working for Jamaica, working for you.
Promise?
There is a place
I promise.
where promises are always kept. At Sagicor,
Pinky promise.
we provide financial security
I did it.
for you and your loved ones.
Yes!
By maintaining your Sagicor policy, you can keep those promises,
Blessed.
no matter what life throws your way.
We're covered with Sagicor for life.
Are you covered?